Are you sharing your screen yet? Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesus Cutia. I'm the program manager for the Building Business Back program. And thank you for joining us on our fourth and final Building Basics workshop, Debt and Credit. So very briefly, so we can jump into the meat and potatoes, our agenda will be speaking about building business back with the program, what we do and what resources we can offer you to succeed. And then we'll jump into the debt and credit portion of this workshop. And then we'll leave Q&A at the top. If you do have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat box to let us know. And if we have time in between the slides, we'll answer those questions, or if not, we'll hold off until the end. But please feel free to write your questions in the chat box. So our team is comprised of our Director of Operations, Paul J. Farmer, yours truly, of course, the Program Manager, Jesus Escutia, and then Program Analyst, Jose Luis Barajas. All three of us are bilingual in Spanish and English, so we try to cover as much as we can. Now, about us. So Building Business Back helps all businesses in Monterey County with a special emphasis on those belonging to historically underserved communities, such as women, minority, and LGBTQ plus community. Our program serves primarily as an informational hub where business owners and entrepreneurs can find and access resources they need to be successful. Our team regularly updates our websites with new grants, loans, utilities, government contracting, and many other programs uh, of interest to businesses. We also host a number of hybrid workshops throughout the county that cover a wide range of topics, including disaster relief, navigating the permit center, getting certified as a diverse supplier, and many more. Most importantly, you can always count on assistance from one of our BBB team members. Our main office is located in Salinas, but we also have satellite office hours in Soledad, King City, Pájaro, and the Monterey Peninsula. Let's see here. Now, to speak a little bit about the historically underserved communities that we're helping, like I mentioned, we help all businesses, and we have a special emphasis on those operating in unincorporated areas, women-owned, minority-owned, and LGBTQ plus community. For example, in the rural and unincorporated areas, we've hosted lunch and learns in King City and Castroville. LGBTQ plus, we attended and participated in the Salinas Valley and the Monterey Peninsula Pride Festival. For women, we hosted the first Lady Boss Women Mean Business workshop. And then for minorities, we hosted the El Sueño Americano con su ITIN. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Fania, who will be giving you the presentation. Fania?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Jesus, for the introduction, and congratulations to the Building Business Back team that is doing amazing things for our county. So today we're going to be speaking about debt and credit. There are many things that we need to know about these two items that we all at one point in our life we will have some debt, and we all have credit, whether it's good or bad, and especially here in this country, a lot of the opportunities that are presented to us, um, they will require um, our credit, our good credit. So, oops, I went back on the slide. So we're gonna start with the definitions of debt and credit. So debt is basically when you owe money, when you owe something to either people, and it could be an individual, banks, and financial institutions, and you have promised to make payments on this debt. Credit is cash or money that you have available and you will be obtaining a debt when you apply or you get this credit. So items that can affect my credit, expenses. You may not think about it, but even when you pay your water bill, your PG&E, those are personal expenses, or they could be business expenses as well, but we'll keep it more on the personal level because most of the credit is usually attached to a person, to an individual. Companies can also have credit. With time, they do develop a credit, and the expenses that you have can help you establish a credit history. Like I mentioned, it could be when paying your water bill, your PG&E, your utilities. If you are on time with those payments, even though they're not on credit, they're just like your normal bills, that helps you build up a credit history. Credit inquiries. Basically, any time that you apply for credit as an individual or even as a company, that affects your credit because the credit bureaus will keep that record, that you're trying to obtain cash or purchase items. And, that shows that you do not have the cash available to pay for it. And, they may think that you just want to keep purchasing things, and they become afraid that you may not be able to pay all of this debt in the future. Another thing that can affect your credit is actually not checking your credit report. It is important that we check our credit report at least once per year. There is a way that you can check your credit report online for free every year. And there are also paid companies that you can use if you want to monitor your credit. Sometimes they're not very expensive. They could be like $20 per year, but we also have to, watch our expenses. And if we can do it for free, let's just do it for free. Acquired debt. So anytime that we apply for credit and acquire a new debt, this is going to affect our credit because we only have a limit. We only have so much open credit in our individual accounts, in our individual credit. So the more credit you acquire, the more debt that you acquire, this is going to affect your credit negatively. So we're combining this presentation between debt and credit. So I also want to talk to you about how to achieve your financial goals. So first, you need to define your financial goals. By doing this, you're going to write it down, and you need to say, okay, by the end of this year, I would like to have $100,000 saved. If you have a business or if you're an individual, or it could even be 10,000, 15,000, the amount doesn't matter. It just has to be realistic. You need to establish a timeline to achieve your goal. Like I said before, it has to be within a certain period of time. So it could be either 1 year or by the end of this month. I'm gonna have $500 saved or put aside. And it doesn't always have to be saving money. It could also be I'm going to pay off this credit card or this loan that I obtained from my cousin. It doesn't always have to be debt from the bank. I could it could also be debt that you have with other individuals. Take a small action steps. So, like I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be huge amount of money. I mean, we all want to have $100,000 saved by the end of the year. It's October, November. Okay, we'll make it. Maybe. But it doesn't have to start with big numbers. It could be as small as by the end of the trimester or the quarter, I want to have $1,000 saved, or I want to pay off two of my credit cards, the ones that I owe the least amount of money. Work on a budget. And 4 and 5 are actually kind of go together. Work on a budget and follow your budget. So yes, you can work on a budget all day long, but if you don't execute it and if you don't follow that budget, you're really not going to have a good result. So you need to follow your budget. If you already said that you were going to save $50 per week, you must do it. It can't just be that you wrote it down and then you don't follow up. So those small steps and that working on your budget is going to help you achieve your financial goals. Okay. So how to administer your debts. So let's say that you already have debt and you're struggling and you're overwhelmed and you want to learn how to administer this debt and you want to pay it off. So you have to analyze your financial situation. You have to really sit down and make a list of all of the debt that you have, starting from the highest debt uh, to the lowest one. You know, even if you owe your sister $10, list that debt down. And you have to be very honest with you and don't take shortcuts and don't lie to yourself. You have to list down the real amounts that you owe. One good step to take is to gather all of your statements from your credit cards, loans. Some of these you may not have statements like debts to individuals, but if you're not sure how much money you owe to an individual, you can definitely start by talking to this individual and asking and you know, starting an honest conversation and say, hey, I really want to pay you back, but I'm not even sure how much money I owe you at this point. So that individual will have an amount for sure because they're the ones that are owed the money. So they will tell you, no, you know, you owe me $2,000 because of this and this and that. So you may agree or not, but what I recommend you doing is, you know, just come to an agreement with this person and write it down. And this step is going to help you analyze and understand your financial situation. Another thing you have to do when analyzing your financial situation is also you have to really understand and know how much money you're bringing into the table every month or every week or every other week, according to how much you're getting paid, in order to start paying off your debt. And I'll give you an idea in just a moment. So when you analyze your financial situation, you're going to evaluate your payment capacity to be able to fulfill your debt payments. So let's say that you owe your sister $10. That's your smallest debt. So you want to start with that one. You want to start with that one, pay it off, and then take it from the lowest one to the highest one. Of course, without forgetting to pay at least the minimum payment on the others. And many credit cards will understand and will work with you if you tell them that you are not able to make the minimum payment. So there's definitely ways for you to pay your debt. The key here is communication with the debtors. So reduce your debt balance. Like I said, you always want to start with the debt that is the lowest one. So make the minimum payment on all of your other credit cards if you can, or talk to your credit cards so they can reduce your minimum payment. But you want to attack the lowest balance first. When you're done paying that lowest balance, you're not going to forget about that payment that you were making. What you're going to do is it's going to work like a snowball effect. So you're going to take that payment that you were making to your lowest credit card or debt, and you're going to incorporate it into your next one. That way, now you attack the next lowest one, which will now be your lowest one, and you keep doing that with the following and the following. And I know a lot of people say just pay the one with the highest interest, but it has been proven that this way of paying debt works a lot better, and it's way less overwhelming. Another thing you can do is establish automatic payments for items that you know that you have the money, but sometimes you just forget to make the payment. So you can establish automatic payments for those. Right here, I'm sorry, I skipped this one. So you're going to classify your formal and informal credits, and that's according to the amount of indebtedness. So what I was trying to say here is you were going to put them from lowest to highest. So establish automatic payments. You can program your payments online to prevent late fees and additional interest. So again, what you're going to do is, if you know that you are able to make at least the minimum payment, establish automatic payments every month for those higher balance accounts, so that so you don't keep accumulating late fees. And maybe if you have already agreed with your debtor that you were going to pay, and then the month comes and you don't pay, they may not want to work with you in the future, and they might start asking you for the full amount of the debt. So just make sure that you're establishing those automatic payments with the minimum payment due. Or, like I was saying at the beginning, even for like your PG&E bill, for your water bill, those are items that may not be on credit cards, or that may not be credit cards themselves, but they are still items that will affect your credit if they go under collection. Another idea is consolidating your debt. If you already have 5, 7, 10 credit cards, or however many credit cards, and you see no way out, you can there's companies that will consolidate your debt. If you don't want to do this snowball effect, and you will only have one payment per month. It might be a higher payment, so you really need to plan for this. This is another idea that you can do. Utilize your credit cards in a smart way. So your credit cards can be used for either fixed or occasional expenses. So choose which credit cards you will be using for fixed expenses. Let's say that you use a credit card to pay all of your utility bills from home. Well, don't use that card for anything else. That way you always have credit available on that credit card to pay your gas, your water, your sewer, and all of these utilities. And what I recommend that you do is every month set up an automatic payment or an automatic option, so that this credit card that you use only for your utilities gets paid in full every single month. This is a credit score buster. It'll bring up your credit scores really good, because you're paying off that credit card every single month. And you can also use your credit cards occasionally for occasional expenses. You may have another credit card that you want to use for grocery, specifically for grocery, or you may have a credit card that you have aside with a higher credit that you would only use in case of an emergency, for like a car repair or something like that. So we just have to be, very conscious about when we are using our credit, and very conscientious basically of where we are spending our money. And that is our behavior is going to keep us out of trouble, basically. Okay. Now, because I am a tax professional, I have to talk about tax debt. So, are you behind on your tax debt? So if you owe back taxes and do not know how to pay, the recommendation is that you try to establish a payment plan directly with the IRS, which is your federal income taxes, or with your state office controller, or in our case is the franchise tax board in the state of California. So a lot of people, as soon as they receive a letter from the IRS, the very first thing they do is they just don't open the letter because they're afraid. And this is something that, you know, the IRS even has statistics on this. It's frightening to open an IRS letter, and you may just choose to throw it away because you just don't want to know about this. But the very first thing they recommend is to read the notices that you receive from both IRS and the franchise tax board. It might be a refund, and you're throwing away that letter. It might be that they're telling you you have a refund for, I don't know, something that was miscalculated, and you know you have some money to pay your other debt now, but you may have to take an additional step or something. So it's very, very important that you read the notices and don't just forget about them. Take action, read them thoroughly. Many of these notices are 2 or 3 pages long, and they will tell you exactly what to do. They will give you instructions. They'll give you phone numbers, addresses, everything. You just need to really read them. And in the case that you don't understand what it says, you can definitely speak to a tax professional that will help you understand what the letter says. But most of the time, there is action that you need to take when you receive an IRS letter. So that's one thing. Open your letters. Ignore promises of businesses that tell you that if you fulfill the requirements, you can qualify for tax forgiveness. I'm not saying that there are not programs in the IRS, especially the famous OIC, which is the offer and compromise. Yes, that program does exist in the IRS. They will forgive your debt, and yes, you have to fulfill the requirements, but we have heard a lot of commercials, you know, that if you owe the IRS $10,000 or more, as soon as you hear that, run away. Not everybody qualifies. It's very, very rare that a person will qualify. You really need to either have had a death in the family, or you know, a sickness. If you were sick, or a person that depends on you was sick, that is on your tax return. And then income has a lot to do as well. And income is one of the main ones, because even if you had a death in the family, but you still have the income to pay for these taxes, most likely it will not be forgiven. So you have to pay a lot of attention, and I would recommend that you ignore those promises. If it sounds too easy, it's probably a lie, or just a company in another state trying to get your money. So do not accept agreements with anyone that wants you to pay for full services in advance. So some companies may ask for a retainer, and that's common practices, but you don't want to pay for the services in full, or in advance, if you don't know what the result is going to be. So I would recommend that you work with someone local, and someone that is referred to you by someone that you trust or know. So stay away from companies that will charge you high fees in maintenance. So a lot of companies, of this type of companies, will want you to pay like a maintenance fee every month, but there's really nothing to maintain. They're just checking your IRS account, and that you can do that for free through the IRS website. And do not compare your tax situation with others. So this one is very common as well. And no tax situation is the same for two individuals. You know, even if they are similar individuals, or if you have a cousin, or your barber is telling you a story of how he was able to write off this many things, it may not apply to you. So don't compare your tax situation to anybody else, and make sure that you understand your situation and you work with someone that can help you pay your tax debt. And tells you how to prevent it from happening in the future. So tax debt is not a good thing to have, but these agencies will work with you. You have up to 72 months to pay your IRS debt and your franchise tax board debt. 72 months, that's 5 years. So they will charge you interest and maybe a penalty for not paying on time, but they will definitely work with you. So if you can pay as soon as possible, that's great too. And and there's definitely not credit with them. Just if you owe them, you just owe them, but there's no credit with them. So now jumping back into credit, what are the factors that determine my credit? Either, is it good, is it bad? So paying on time is very, very, very important. So the automatic online payment is the best thing you can do. So schedule at least the minimum payment on your credit card for every month. This is going to save you, it's going to help you improve your credit. Or one of the things, because there's other factors, but this is one of the things that will save you at least $25 per month, because most credit cards will charge you, and I think now it's like $30. So it'll save you. If you have 5 credit cards, that's a lot of money already. That's like $150 per month on just late fees if you forget to pay your credit cards. Amount of debt. So I think I have it in another slide, but it's about 30% of your credit, of your open credit. Once you pass that 30%, that's we're going into like a little red light there. So make sure that the amount of your debt, like the ratio, is not higher than the 30%. So the fact that you have open credit with either a credit card or furniture or credit line with the bank, it doesn't mean that you have to use it all. It just means that you have a good history of credit, but just make sure that you keep an eye on the amount of your debt. And I recommend that everybody does a financial assessment on themselves at least once per quarter. So that's 4 times per year. And bankruptcy. So I know that sometimes it might be necessary to go bankrupt, but there's always a way to work with companies. And a lot of the time people do this because they just don't want to pay. And every situation is different. I'm not saying that this is not a solution, but just know that if you decide to do it, is going to hurt your credit very, very, very in a very bad way. Okay. Ways to improve my credit. So your credit history. So basically, we're writing a history in our credit. Numbers do matter. So length of credit history. So how long have you had credit? A lot of people start, even though they're already 18 years old, but they just don't open a bank account and they wait till 25 to continue working with cash. But the sooner you start opening your credit history, the better, because that will show that you have had a credit history for a long time. Once you're ready to maybe buy a house or buy a car, pay your debt on time and in full. So a lot of people, once you get into collections and you come up to an agreement with a credit card and you don't pay in full, that also stays on your credit report, and the forgiven amount of your debt is taxable income. So maybe you don't pay the credit card, but you will have to pay Uncle Sam on on taxes if you don't pay your debts in full. Also, the companies could sue you, and they'll just do a process through your local court, and they can garnish your wages. So it would be very embarrassing, if your employer received a letter from the court saying that they have to garnish some of your wages because you have a pending debt. And that's not good for employment history, because it doesn't make you look good. Oh yeah, so here's where I have it. So having more than 35% of debt on an open credit account will affect your credit. So we always want to keep it at the most at 30%. So if I have credit of 10,000, only use 3,000. And not too much. So ensure your credit report does not have errors. So a lot of people have the same names as, their moms or dads, and that could, there could be errors on our credit reports. Not only that, but we want to look at our credit report at least once per year, because what if someone is using my social security number, or in some cases my ITIN, because now ITINs are building credit now. So you want to make sure that you're checking on that, and that nobody else is using your name and your numbers and your address to obtain fraudulent credit. I believe this might be my last slide. Yes. So any questions from the audience, online or in person? Yes.
Can you touch on some of the differences between business and consumer debt?
Yes. Yes. So consumer debt is more like personal. It's personal. We go and buy clothes, shoes, all that. Business debt, it doesn't always have to be bad, because a lot of businesses may want to get embedded to invest, to purchase equipment, maybe to finance payroll for their employees. So it is different, because it doesn't always have to be bad. And it does help you build a credit for the company. But from my experience, what I've seen is that it doesn't happen overnight. I've heard that people say, oh, within 10 days, your company already has credit. And that's not true. We have to have some time in between to be able to establish business connections and say, okay, well, this company has been purchasing from me, the famous B2B, the business to business. And I know that I can extend $100,000 in credit, depending on what type of business we're talking about. But for consumer credit, it's probably 10,000, 11,000, 20,000 maybe. But for businesses, depending on the size and the amount of purchases, it could be a really high amounts.
Then just filing for its bankruptcy discharge the owners from liability of that type.
It depends. It depends, because so the reason or the intention for incorporating. So we're talking about a corporation. If it's a sole proprietor, no. If it's a sole proprietor, no. It'll never happen. But if it's an incorporated entity, such an S corp, C corp, or an LLC, if the intention of forming that entity was to defraud these companies, then no, because but the intention needs to be, you need to prove that that was the intention. Whenever you apply for credit, even if it's through an S corp or an LLC, and when I say they, I mean the institution extending the credit, they will want to know who's behind all of this. There has to be a physical person responsible for the payments, even though we are making this agreement with the business, but there has to be a physical person as well. So that's why we see sometimes the news of, major CEOs, being on court rooms and all of this, because there is a physical individual behind all of these transactions. So it doesn't always happen. And again, intention has a lot to do.
We talked a lot about different forms of debt, for trying to go that's a loan or credit card debt. What about merchant cash advances? What's the difference between the merchant cash advance and a loan?
A merchant cash advance, it's almost the same. It's almost the same. But basically what you're getting is you're just getting money in advance, so that creates a liability to you. You will find it in the same space in your balance sheet. I view it as the same thing because both are liabilities. But the difference is that they are advancing you, they're paying you in advance for something that you haven't delivered the product or the service for. When a loan is just money that, you're not gonna provide any services or products for it, you're basically just going to pay it back with money that is coming from anywhere, really.
And then we talked a lot about interest, but I think it's mostly on the assumption that everything is simple interest. But what's the difference between simple and compound interest? Which one should you tackle first? Like, does the tackle it the one with the highest outstanding balance first, or is it with the lowest balance first? Does that matter? Does that still apply if the interest is compounded, or is that only this?
Only if it's simple. I don't think we see a lot of compounded interest loans anymore because they could be considered predatory, especially for someone that doesn't know, what they're buying. So we don't see. I haven't seen one like that in many, many years. I don't think I've ever seen one. So most of the interest that we see now, it's simple, even if it's for big companies, especially if it's for companies. And I know that if you start tackling the lowest depth first, it'll even give you the feeling of success, like, yeah, I can do this. And then you go into the next one. So I understand that some people will say, well, pay the one that you pay the most interest on first, but it's easier. It's easier if you just pay your lowest one first. And I know I use the sample of $10, but I know it could be 3,000, but yeah.
And then when seeking to make business like commercial property benefits or acquiring commercial property, is it more common for your lender to analyze the business's credit or the individual's credit?
Both. And one of the things that they will also analyze for sure is your income tax. So more than your credit, when it comes to purchasing a commercial building, more than your credit, what they want to see is, do you have enough money to operate your credit, and you have enough money for this down payment? Because it's not going to be a normal real estate transaction, such a home or a duplex. Is going to be a commercial building. And they definitely look at your tax return. They want to make sure they get tax return transcripts, ensuring that what you're showing them is actually what's filed with the IRS. And they want to see your financials, which your balance sheet. And they want to see how much money you have distributed to yourself as a shareholder, assuming that you are an S corporation. So more than credit for commercial activities is the tax return.
And is there a room for individuals and or businesses when they first start off getting a line of credit? Obviously, our system is like a 0 to 800 or 900. So is there, say I just opened up a bank account for my business, is there a number that we start at, or is it just from 0 to go up?
I don't want to say that it starts at 0. I've never seen a 0 one, but I've seen like 400, 300. So for businesses, I haven't seen one lately. But the last time I checked mine, like 10 years ago, it was around 300. And I was already a I would say not a pretty established business, but I was already established. And you can find that on a DUNS, it's a DUNS number. That is a number that will help you. You can get it for free. And I don't have the website right now, but you can get it for free. And that number will help you establish credit for the business, But I don't have the exact number for that. But for individuals, yeah, I mean, and I've never seen an 800 either on individuals. Yes. Any questions, Jesus?
No,
No?
I think,
Do we have any questions from the audience? No?
no, I
Good.
think we're all set.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Mhm. Oh, okay, okay. Okay. Let me see. And so I wanted to share this with you as well. So next month on November 15th, we are going to have our annual event, Cash Flow Masters. This is an event 100% Spanish. If you know anyone that might benefit from this, we're going to start at 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and we're going to have speakers. Our keynote speaker is Paul Farmer. He is he's the president of the director of operations. I'm sorry, of the Monterey Building Business Back program. We will also have from the same program Jordan Caballero, and he's going to be talking about contracting with the governments, how to get a contract with the government. We will also have Carolina Hernandez from Cal Savers, and she'll be explaining everything about Cal Savers. So I invite you to register. We already have the registration link available, and if you visit our Facebook page, you can find it there, or you can also look it up on Eventbrite. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone today for being able to join us online and for everyone that's here today. Thank you again, Tanya. That was a lot of great information. I can only imagine how we've only scratched the surface of of a topic that's so complex with credit and debt and how you can go from consumer and business. I'd also like to thank the Cardinal College for hosting our workshop today. Today's workshop and our services are free because the County of Monterey has dedicated funding to helping businesses recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and to thrive. If you're interested in learning more, feel free to visit our website at montereycountybusiness.com where you'll find this workshop along with previous workshops that we've held as well. And I would like to also invite you to our next workshop, the State Trade Expansion Program. That will be November 1st at 4 p.m. Registration will be on our website where you can stay after the presentation so we can talk about registering you. That concludes our workshop. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of your day.